Hey everyone, Samy from Ketchapp. Glad to be back on stage with a brand new presentation for this AGC edition. Today we're going to talk about emotions. And more specifically, we'll see how you can leverage your viewers' emotions thanks to your game's UI creatives to convert better. Why does it matter? Well, because it's one of the most, if not the most efficient way to stand out in an information saturated environment. It's been theorized and discussed by many smart people already. We live in the attention economy, an economy where the most difficult part when you're selling something, in our case games, is to first catch your users' attention. Because to do so, you're competing with personal messages, social networks, news, entertainment platforms, and obviously other products ads. According to the last trustable studies on the topic, we're exposed to more than 2K ads each day. And actually, it's very probably an underestimated number, especially if you're a hyper casual player. On this amount, less than a dozen of ads will actually lead to conversion. Not so much, right? That's why targeting your viewers' emotions matters. The IPA, the Institute of Practitioners in Ads, not the beer, went across 1,500 case studies of digital marketing campaigns to prove that the ones targeting emotions perform in average twice better than rational campaigns. That's just too big to ignore. Now that we have this in mind, there are two questions that we need to answer. First, what are the tools that we can use in our games and creatives to leverage the emotions of our users? And second, what are the emotions we actually want to target? Let's start quickly by answering the first one. To do so, we went across dozens of emotional marketing and storytelling studies to keep these five most essential tools. Essential and, most importantly, transposable to hyper-casual, of course. Five tools that you can apply when designing your game's creatives to emotionally impact your viewers. The first one relies on the shock advertising concept. This is basically the extreme version of creating a wow effect applied to advertising. The recipe here is quite simple. To create a shock, all you have to do is to violate socially admitted norms, values, or IDs. The point with this technique is that shocking content attracts viewers' attention and polarizes their answers. Be careful though about the shock you want to create. If you're going too strong, you might sign the end of your game, as it happened, for example, to Fat to Fit, which was judged grossophobic and banned out of the App Store. The second one is tension and suspense building. What you want here is to make viewers care about your ad by showcasing suspenseful moments. Many big names of the mid-core industry are heavily using this approach, as you can see in these few creatives from Royal Match, Last Fortress, Age of Origins. When confronted to such situations, our brain is automatically wired to anticipate a result. That way, users actually project themselves emotionally in your game, which is our goal today, as you understood it. The third one relies on the use of visual symbols. Whatever the field, whether it's in paintings, movies, or games, colors, shapes, objects come with a meaning. They all have their connotations and induce different emotions that we could roughly represent this way. For example, traditionally, dark colors will be linked to unpleasant emotions, and the red color, for example, will imply danger, especially if you couple it with some sharp shapes like spikes, the threat sensation will become even clearer, right? But this is pretty basic and mainly supports the understandability purpose. Your goal should actually to be, well, to go beyond this basic understanding purpose. For example, Good Job did it in Rush Hour 3D very well. Here, as you can see, the red and blue lights of the police car chasing you is bringing tension to the game. In addition to making the game very understandable, the lighting on the back of your car also implies that danger is getting closer, so it clearly contributes to making the game more exciting. Then comes our number four, target the memories of your users. Basically, we're talking relatability here. And there's actually a cognitive bias behind this one, because human beings tend to be more receptive with concepts they're already familiar with. And this familiarity implies emotion. For example, this creative of Grabmaster will probably bring back some memories to most of us, whether we experienced it as a child or as a parent. And finally, you can gently provoke your players. Directly or not, you can challenge them with proven techniques like fail videos and taunting taglines, because deep down, what you imply when you write only 1% of the people can do something is, well, we bet you can't. And given how simple HC games usually are, it can be quite annoying, and annoying enough for the viewers to want to prove us wrong by downloading the game. So this quite long intro was the answer to our first question. These were the 5 tools you can use in your creatives to leverage emotions. Our second question, the most important one, remains unanswered. What emotions should we target? Are there some emotions that convert better than others? The good news is that some brilliant people already gave an answer to that question. The circumplex model of emotions, invented by the eminent psychologist James Russell, basically creates a mapping of emotions. On the x-axis, you go from negative/unpleasant emotions to the positive ones on the left, and on the y-axis, you have the intensity degree of the reaction implied by the emotion. Applied to our case with ad consumption, activation could be a synonym of conversion. So to give you a proper example and make it maybe a bit clearer, boredom in the bottom left corner is a mildly unpleasant feeling that has little to no chance to drive to conversion. On the opposite, fun is rather seen as a very positive emotion with a strong conversion potential. Then it's time to confront theory to concrete hyper-casual practices. What we did is that we reviewed hundreds of hit games best creatives to identify and isolate the most commonly leveraged emotions. And it gave us this shortlist with a top 4 of the best performing positive emotions: curiosity, amusement, empowerment, and satisfaction, and a top 4 of the most performing negative ones: arousal, frustration, disgust, and unease. Now, don't get me wrong, this classification is not rocket science. We are talking psychology, emotions here, so we are aware that it's a highly subjective and personal topic. But you can just see this classification as an attempt, as a framework that we will use to get a clearer view of how our market works, which is the point of what we're doing today. Now that we've isolated each of these emotions, we'll see with concrete examples how you can actually trigger them in the most efficient way. And let's start with the positive emotions. The first and most powerful one being curiosity. Good stories make us care about people or situations. Your job with your creatives is to find a short story viewers will care about, to then make them worry about what's going to happen next. There are actually 3 well-known but underused in hyper-casual storytelling tricks to do so. The first one involves teasing. The main goal here will be to hook viewers in the first 3 seconds of your video. This implies clear and understandable situations that come with very short-term outcome. For example, merging games like Heroes Inc. are perfect on that side. Because the situation is understandable in one glimpse, you're going to mix ingredients to generate something new, because we can start to guess the results only by looking at the ingredients. Getting your viewers involved should be relatively easy if you use that technique. Once you have the attention of your user, you need to keep it. And to do so, nothing works best than tension building. The point here will be to walk on the thin line of uncertainty. For example, in his creative of Blob Hero, will this little guy survive? Or will he be overwhelmed by the growing assaults of the crowd? As you can see, the suspense is real all along the video. Finally, you can leverage the power of cliffhangers by showcasing unresolved situations, like we did here in one of our best performing creative from Just Survive. When done right, viewers just can't resist the appeal of curiosity. They'll need to download the game to fulfill that need. One disclaimer with this one though, remember that the average watch time of a Facebook ad is of less than 5 seconds. So don't wait till the end of your 30-second creative to showcase that cliffhanger. Now let's jump to our second positive emotion, amusement. Basically here, the point is quite simple. We'll want our users to laugh, or at least to make them exhale a bit of extra air from their nose. And it's time for a bit of theory on the different humor triggers. We've regrouped all the different types of humor that can be applied to your creatives. So here we go with first physical humor, also called slapstick humor, probably the easiest way to make someone smile. It relies on exaggerating, surprising, or wild body movements, from falling people to funny facial expressions or ragdoll effects, like in this quite funny try to fly creative. Then we have the absurd humor that features illogical events, situations, or themes. It's one of the main comical levers where you can see a 911 agent dealing with a burger ordering client. Next, you have the topical humor that often goes very parodic or satirical. It's basically making fun of current events or trends. There are a few elements you want to remain careful about with this one. First, you obviously want to avoid sensitive political topics to rather focus on light, gossip-oriented ones like this Will Smith slap in Boss Life 3D. Second, you need to make sure that the events or trends you target are mainstream enough, generating lots of interactions on social media across different countries, for example. Third, by definition, these creatives will be trend-based, meaning that their hype might fade away quite fast. So it can be great to refresh best creatives of an old game, for example, but you should probably avoid basing your entire game strategy on this one. Then we have dark humor, which involves dark, depressing, underlying themes, but with a comical twist. Forensic Master is a great example on that side, with its videos based on grimacing corpses with bad makeup. And you can also go for the dirty humor, creatives that rely on indecency as main comic effect. Most of the time, it's quite unsubtle and marked with sexual situations. So it's usually quite dangerous, as well we saw with the case of Sticky Flip, and its jumping dildo that had some problem with Apple. Even if it might work well CPI wise, beware of the consequences, especially in terms of App Store's ban. And finally, we have the observational humor, the ability to poke fun at everyday life. With this one, the more relatable the situation, the more fun it becomes usually. Whether we talk about the pain of stepping on a Lego or about the terrible cooking skills of our dads trying to cook us something, like in this The Cook creative, There are endless of common little things to make fun of. Our next big emotion will be empowerment. Here, it's all about the promise we're making to our viewers, the promise that they will experience in our game something they couldn't experience in the real world. We can find two main levers to make our users feel powerful. The first one, the most cathartic one, is to give to our players an opportunity to rebel against common rules, whether it's against hierarchy, like in our Room Rage Best Creative, where, as you can see, players have the opportunity to kick their annoying boss's ass, or as in Don't Text, where we clearly ignore the most elementary driving rules. The second lever is more about turning childhood dreams into reality. By letting your players enjoy superhuman abilities, you actually trigger a primitive satisfaction, whether it's by giving them Jedi's abilities in Force Master, where you can grab enemies using telekinesis and send them fly away from a gesture, or by nuking a huge crowd in crowd defense. In both cases, the point is to let our players go beyond traditional human abilities and rules in a recognizable context, to anchor the storytelling and generate even more satisfaction. Which leads us to our last positive emotion of the day before we jump to the dark side, satisfaction. When games just feel too good to not give them a try. Here, we identify three main axes to maximize satisfaction. First, the satisfaction from interactions with colors and textures. There are plenty of great games on this side out there. Jelly is without a doubt one of the best looking and most satisfying one, with its super satisfying jelly texture and painting spreading. But it's also important to keep in mind that having great ASMR-ish feel isn't only an option for simulation games, and this die-hard video can prove it. With highly satisfying visuals and painting splashes, this game is probably one of the best looking, if not the best looking, Splatoon-like game out there on the app stores. Second, satisfaction can also come from the organic feel of physics-based flows, like in balls and ropes, and its massive amount of physics balls following gravity, or like in Castle Red, where your army behaves like a mesmerizing liquid, filling the gaps in each hole the character creates by drawing into the grass. Finally comes the satisfaction from completion feeling. Just as it feels good to tick a box in your to-do at work, it should deeply feel good to achieve something in-game, especially if the visual reward is clear and juicy as in Color Roll 3D, or if it answers some OCD triggering situations like in Fill the Fridge. And that concludes our positive emotions part. The time has now come to explore darkest horizons. With our four shortlisted negative emotions: arousal, frustration, disgust, and unease. Now, small disclaimer before we move further: the point of this presentation is to showcase the state of the market as it is, beyond moral judgment. We're sharing some common hyper-casual practices, but the decision remains entirely yours to decide if you want to embrace these practices or to reject them. Now that it's said, let's jump into the most controversial of them all, arousal. It's not a scoop. Sex sells. Whatever the industry, it always did. It's a proven way of targeting our most basic primal instincts and thus to catch viewers' attention. And yes, it can help to decrease your marketability costs significantly. But the main danger with this, again, beyond any moral judgment, is that both the app stores and the ad networks tend to be quite harsh with sexualized slash arousing content. So by using such creatives, you actually put your game survival at risk, as your game could be banned without notice. So in addition to the ethical question, it's a major reason to avoid building your entire game around this emotional lever. And to be transparent, it's a trick that we decide to not leverage at Ketchup. But if you still want to try your luck, you should at least make sure to go for suggestive content, like in this Erase It video, rather than for fully explicit one, like in, for example, this Comic Bob video. In theory, doing this will give you the opportunity to be more creative and subtle, as well as to reduce the ban risks. Because the final topic that we need to discuss here with the end of this Comic Bob creative is another very sensitive point when it comes to arousing content. Yes, offending content can easily become viral on social networks, especially because it means polarizing your audience, etc., which performs very well. But on one side, you will engage strongly some users, and on the other, you'll take the risk to offend and lose a potential big chunk of your audience, which is the opposite of what we are trying to do in hyper casual. And obviously, it's never a good thing business wise. So again, the choice is yours, but you need to see the two sides of the coin to be aware of the risks of leveraging this emotion. Then, as much as we should avoid frustration in game, we should make sure to leverage it in user acquisition. The most common technique here is to showcase a deeply unsatisfying situation, typically someone failing miserably to solve an extremely simple problem. You want to make your viewers think that no one should be that dumb, that it shouldn't even be allowed. Take that gameplay from Origame, for example. What we want to trigger here is the exact opposite of the satisfaction from completion. Basically, it's anti-dopamine. And because it's anti-dopamine, because we've stolen away some potential satisfaction from the users, they need something to compensate. And playing your game, which is freely and immediately available right here, should look like the ideal solution. What's interesting is that behind the efficiency of this method, there's a famous cognitive bias called the illusory superiority, which basically states that we consider ourselves smarter than the average. By showcasing this fails video, we make viewers feel the urge to try it for themselves, to prove that yes, they are smarter than the average, yes, they can do better. Now, cross-promotion time, if the impact of cognitive biases interests you, especially in hyper-casual, we have a full video dedicated to this topic on the AGC YouTube channel, so don't hesitate to have a look. And I promise that's it for the cross-promotion. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we enter the most shocking part of the presentation. If you plan to eat something after it, you should probably stop watching right here, because we're going to jump into the most unpleasant emotions of the day, starting from slightly uneasy creatives to truly disgusting and even unwatchable ones. What's interesting here with these emotions is that at first we could think that these emotions would have a strong repulsive effect, but actually they prove to be sometimes very powerful. We'll start very softly with the bizarre and slightly uneasy Merge Animal 3D. Here, the creative leverages the bizarreness effect, a cognitive bias, which basically means that we better remember the weirdest things and that we care more about them. Then, a bit more uneasy because of its overly gore aspect and weird enemies comes gun action. And now we are reaching a critical point with our first deeply disgusting and uneasy creative. It comes from Master Doctor. Don't tell me I didn't warn you. Sorry for this. And finally, the Oscar of the most terrible creative of the day will go to Acrylic Nail, and it's more than 100 million downloads. It's last chance if you want to look away. This is probably the most hardcore a mobile ad can go, as we are getting close from torture video right here. But if you watch right now, in spite of my warnings, then it means that you understand a bit the potential, the fascination potential of these ads. So yeah, overall the power of the shock advertising is very strong with all these creatives, and these creatives actually prove that it works. Still, the chances for these ads to be banned is quite strong, as you can guess, so make sure your entire game's ad strategy doesn't rely on that unique disgusting feature. Now, to conclude this presentation, I'll just have a quick word, as usual, to invite you to go beyond what already exists and has been shown today. Don't limit yourself. One game should appeal to different emotions to maximize its UI potential. That's something you need to care about and think about from the ideation stage because it's directly linked to the core of your prototype. One game can leverage satisfaction and unease at the same time, like Blobbuster, for example, and its weirdly disgusting blobbish ASMR feel, or disgust and curiosity, like Pull Them All, where we are somehow strangely looking forward to seeing the results of pulling out that teeth. And on the other side, you can, with one game, bet on different emotions depending on the creative. For example, in Blob Hero. With the same setting and weapon, you can have one creative betting on tension building, where we are asking ourselves is if the stickman is going to survive, trying to kind of run away from the crowd. And not another one, more empowering creative, where the character is not fleeing anymore, but on the contrary, it looks like he's chasing the enemies. So yeah, that's it for today, guys. Think about all this next time you ideate or work on creatives. Leveraging emotions in UA is just too powerful to be ignored. And yeah, thank you for your attention. I hope you found this presentation useful and entertaining. Don't hesitate to come and say hi on Pine, LinkedIn, or wherever you want or can. All the best to you. Stay safe. Bye.